Hi guys, my name is Joe, and this is just my channel which is going to go through all the maths contents in A-level maths, specifically the Edexcel curriculum. And so you might have seen in the previous videos we looked at some of the pure stuff, and now we're going to be moving on to some of the applied stuff, so by basically statistics and mechanics. So it's jumping straight in, we're going to be looking at chapter number 2, where we'll be looking at firstly, measuring central tendencies. So if we have like a set of data, we ideally want to know a couple of key terms or key points regarding the data. And the first things we want to know is the mode, the median, and the mean. You guys have probably known about this stuff before, but I'm just going to give a quick brief overview of each one. So the mode or modal class, they might call it, is just the most occurring number, most occurring value. Median is the value when we put them in order, ascending order essentially, we want to find the middle value, right? So for this one specifically, what we have to do is we have to find initially first n over 2. Okay, n being the total number of data sets, okay, and then that would be the term we're trying to find. Now, if this n over 2 value is a whole number, then we have to round up by 0.5, okay? We round up by 0.5. If it's anything other than a whole number, then we always have to round up. Okay, so that's the key thing to remember when we're trying to find the median value. And finally, the mean is just the average value, right? And it's just, you might see it as x bar. This is the term they might give it to in A-level now. It just means the sum of x. This is the sum of x, so adding all the x values, and n being the total number of values. Okay, so that's how we would find the mean value. And sometimes you might be given a frequency, so there might be several values of x, so that's why we have this f here. This f stands for frequency. If we're given this, then it's the sum of f times x over the sum of f. So we're going to be looking at each case individually later on in these examples. Right, let's try this one here. So we have a small workshop which records how long it takes in minutes for each of their workers to make a certain item. The table is shown in the times are shown in the table. Write down the mode for this data. Remember, the mode was just the most occurring number, right? So this is relatively simple, just to find the value which occurs the most. In this case, we have two 8s here, right? 8, 8. So the mode would be for part A, just 8. Right, B, calculate the means, right? Mean being the average, so we're going to use that equation we learned earlier. X bar is just the sum of x over n. Sum of x is just adding up each individual value. So if I was to write it out, 8 plus 6 plus 8 plus 5 plus 26 plus 11 plus 9, that would be the sum of x. And we divide that by the total number, n being how many data values there are. In this case, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And if we just plug it into the calculator, you get a value of 10.2. So that's our mean value. And finally, calculate the median. So the median, remember, we have to, first things first, we have to write them in ascending order, right? So at the moment, the data set is not in ascending order. So I need to write that in ascending order first. So we have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, so we have two 8s, right? 8, 8, 12, and 26. Okay, so now I've written them in ascending order. Now we go for n over 2. You have term, right? So n being once again 10, so 10 over 2. We're technically looking for the fifth term. But remember, because when I said if it's a whole number when we do this division, we have to always round up, right? So instead, we actually have to find the 5.5th term, okay? So we go for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is number 6, right? So the 5.5th term with the value would be the value in between 8 and 9. So therefore, it would just be 8.5. Right, let's look at another example where we have some frequencies now. So we have the weekly wages of the production line workers in a small factory as shown in the table. Right in the modal class, okay? So now it's a modal class, but as you can see for the weekly wages, it's not single values, there's a limit, there's a range of which the x values can be. So once again, for A, it's relatively simple. Just find the value with the highest frequency, which would be this one here, right? 28 values between 351 and 400. So that will be our modal class. Right, B, calculate the estimate of the mean wage. So x bar, in this case, because we have a frequency, we would have to use the equation sum of f times x over the sum of f, because we have the frequency. Right, importantly though, we have the frequencies f, right? But we need to times it by x. And x, as you can see here, has a range, right? All of these have a range. So it's really hard to know which x to use. In this scenario, the x we have to use is actually the midpoint of each one. So if I write another x column here, it's going to be the midpoint of each class. So the first one here, the midpoint here would be 200. Second one, the midpoint would be 263. 325.5, 375.5, and 450.5 like this. So you need to write another column with the x values, which are the midpoints of each class. And now then I can just use the equation. So summing up f times x, so first things f will be 4 times the x will be 200, plus 8 times 263, plus 18 times 325.5, and so on and so on, just the rest as well, right? I'm not going to write out for it. And now this is divided by the sum of f. So f will be all these values summed up together. So it'll be 4 plus 8 plus 18 plus 28 plus 7, like this. And that way we can get the mean, which will turn out to be roughly 345.1. Okay. So when we're dealing with a class, this is technically known as a continuous data, which we'll look at later on. We have to find the midpoint of the class and set that as our x in our equation. Finally, write the interval containing the median. So once again, luckily for us, the x values are in ascending order, right? So we just have to find n over 2 term, n being the total number of terms, right? So in this case, n is what? We're going to have 4 plus 8 plus 18 plus 28 plus 7 over 2. That is going to be total n divided by 2, the middle point, which will give me the 32.5 value, which we're trying to find. Okay, so for this one here, this is known as continuous data because there's a range. We can't find a specific point yet. We'll look at how to find that later on. But for this one, we just have to find the 32.5 term. So as you can see here, it's going from the beginning. We have 4 in the first one, add 8 will be 12, and so on 30. So it's going to be lying within this range here, 351 to 400 again. Okay, so you just add your way up cumulatively, basically.